I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Nottingham Planning Board for April 11th, 2018. This is a regular scheduled meeting. I'd like to go around the board and just have members introduce themselves. Buzz, would you start?
Robert Davies, alternate.
Teresa Bascom.
Tony Dumas, Select Board.
Edward Veal.
Dirk Grotenhuis.
Susan Mooney.
Gary Anderson.
Joe Clough.
Great, thanks. We are tonight, this is more of kind of a working work session, and we're gonna go through specific projects and a project list that we, as a planning board, have developed. And one of the things we'll primarily be talking about tonight is the steep slopes. Steep slope ordinance was brought before the town in 2016?
14.
No, it never made it to the
No, it
town.
never made it.
Oh,
Never made it out
2014.
here.
2014.
Correct.
Okay. And then we've been looking at it ever since, and I think it's time to revisit it, right? And see if there are some changes. And I don't really recall, do we have, we had a public meeting, but do we have the minutes from that meeting? If there was feedback from, I don't remember what the public, if there was public input.
I have minutes, but I didn't print them.
Okay. If you could just scan through them and pick out if there were some public comments or issues that we could remind us.
2014, figure.
It was December 2014, because I looked at that up in my hard drive today.
Do you recall if there were some comments or?
No, I just had a draft ordinance.
Gotcha.
I don't generally keep minutes on
Okay.
my computer.
Well, I think it would be interesting to know if there were some comments back then, if you, let us know if you find them, but, let's just get into it, I guess. I wanna know where we'd wanna start. This is, we have language which already been drafted, people have read this for the most part. Is this the direction that we wanna be going? One of the questions I had after reading through this is, we're proposing this, it was proposed previously as an overlay district. And a lot of towns that I have seen have this just steep slopes just as a blanket ordinance in their zoning ordinance. Anytime it exceeds whatever the percentage that town wants, then it applies, and it's not in a specific overlay district. Overlay districts would be something smaller than what the town limits are. I'm not sure why we have this as an overlay district. I don't know if there's anyone
No,
who
it
remembers
was-
why, or is there a good reason for it?
It was prepared for us by a town planner.
Yeah, by Jack.
And, yeah, and this is the direction in which he took.
Okay.
But the reason that he took that direction was because we suggested that the only thing we had to work from was the town maps with the topography on them. So that's why he went in that direction.
So we were going to apply, or this would apply to the steep slope map. Or, right, I do remember, we were looking at the map and where
And that's
kind of
why
25% and
the,
above.
there's a little line in here about if the person seeking approval thinks the maps are wrong,
It's
then
right in here. Yep,
Yeah, I remember that. Then they can
right here.
hire a surveyor and,
3A.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Because that, why link it to a specific map when topography is part of a, especially where this is proposed for site plans and major subdivisions currently, where that topography would have to be shown.
I thought I remembered Jack said, looking at it and, kind of looking at where the bulk of the steep slope, the steep slopes were in town, not that it really captured all of them, but, he was trying to look at the overall, the larger percentage of the slope.
So what, if it's outside the overlay district, and it just so happens that it's not drawn in the circle that the map has on it, then there's no requirements for them to do anything relative to steep slopes. Even if their land has steep slopes, it's just not on our map.
Unless you add language in about the applicability stating that map, or where it's found that
That would give some wiggle room to
so,
that.
you know, trying to think of how you'd word it. But I mean, if you're gonna put the or in there, again, why bother why refer to the map? It seems like it would be part of the application, so kind of agree that instead of making it a map and an overlay district that we're responsible to maintain, it would just be part of the normal.
I think it would simplify it, and there'd be less area for different interpretations.
Right, misunderstanding, yeah.
My only concern would be someone could have a small area, 15% or greater, that's very self-contained within their property and have no outside ramifications, and that might not be included in the district. I think the intent is to.
Well, yeah, I think we had it kind of, I've seen it also in other regulations as either a percentage of the lot or an area. I think it was, I think we had it listed as, is it 30,000 square feet in ours? You're saying if there's a small pocket of steep slopes on some.
I guess I was curious if we leave it, the wiggle room there, and then that shows up in the plan, how are we gonna define if that's?
Well, the only reason we really care so much about it is if it's going to affect their driveway or their building area. If they have a small section of it in the corner where their yard is, it's not a big deal. It's only a concern if it's driveway or buildable area,
Where
correct?
it's being
Yeah, or
disturbed.
any area that's disturbed. So if it's
Well,
kind of
yeah.
the leach field or,
And they won't be able to count it, so they wouldn't be allowed to count that area towards the lot envelope,
Right.
basically.
That's what I'm saying, in buildable
Lot
area.
size.
If you're looking at where their house and all of that contains for it, which would be the garage, septic, the well, if that area is within the steep slopes, then it would apply, but if it's just on the lot, it wouldn't matter.
yeah, if it's just naturally occurring on the lot that the homeowner's not gonna, or whoever the developer is not gonna impact or disturb, then yeah, there wouldn't be any
Yeah,
reason to
even temporarily.
regulate it.
So I just have to be careful about the definition, like, under applicability under 3D, the second page. I think that probably pulls into that area, so if we're talking about the lot, the minimum lot size can't include the area that's over 15% slope. So when you're talking about minimum lot size, are you talking about the 2 acre minimum, or are we talking about the lot envelope? Which I think are.
It would be the envelope, yeah.
Well, it needs to state that specifically.
Right, so I
then.
think we just have to be careful on, and make sure we.
So, I mean, the reason for this is to avoid erosion and sediment running off and all of that. We have 15%, slopes greater than 15% as steep.
Right.
Is that a number that we just picked? I know if there was a recommendation, I see a lot of other places, it's much steeper than that. It's like 25, in some cases 33%. But 25% has been typical.
I think this was from,
We've got 25%
what's his name
on the
there?
very back of this proposal that restricts activities even more. But from 15% to 24%, you're allowed to have like driveways or easements of some sort, like for,
Okay.
You know, what percentage of the town, maybe excluding the state park, has 15% or greater?
Yeah, it's on that map. Do we have the
There's a
map?
pretty, there's a
I can
pretty
get, I'll get it.
significant area,
Where is it on the wall?
Yeah, it seems,
15 to 25 and 25.
15 is not a lot.
I'm curious.
When Teresa and I went to a workshop, maybe 6 months ago, it was down in Kingston, the presenter informed everybody in the audience that a lot of developers have imaging technology that can show you a plan in 3D. And I think certainly if this is an issue, that would be a benefit for our board to review and be able to see how it looks in 3D.
That would have been helpful for that,
Goal application,
yes.
yeah, Route 4, yeah.
Well, yeah, and then the site walkthrough was there too.
All you gotta do is drive by that one.
Yeah.
Don't even have to slow down.
Don't even have to slow down.
Yeah.
All you can say is, how can anybody possibly put a driveway in there?
Well, you gotta look out and look up.
Should probably hold off until,
The pine trees on that slope have never been cut, that's how steep it is.
Wow. Didn't realize that.
That's why you can see right up in there, because the trees are so big that there's, there's no little trees in there at all.
Wow.
Yeah, did you look in our planning booklet to see where steep slopes was mentioned, if at all?
I don't think it is, it's just under,
It's all
it's just
impact
it's
fees,
just the environmental,
characteristic
so
zoning.
it's, as far as I can tell, it's just pretty vague and broad. This is what we're allowed to do.
Innovative land use controls.
The other thing that's not in here, and I don't know if it necessarily belong, but as far as public utilities, would our town ordinances have any impact on that? Thinking people that decide they want to put in wind turbines or more power lines were to come through town.
Yeah, yeah. Well, for major subdivisions, they have to bury all of their electrical stuff.
Two-legged tripod.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, if they're putting in a road, they do. I don't know necessarily that they have to, if it's a,
It's really hard to read.
Maybe it could be set up against the
All
table.
these engineers, they can't get a tripod to work.
Look at our budget.
I thought the steep slopes
There
had
you
yellow
go.
in it.
so when you look around at other towns, I know Dirk does this more frequently, and we could definitely reach out to like SRPC. I can't remember
Oh, I
if
see it.
Jack
It's in,
had
it's in,
had a list of the towns that have the ordinances and what their things are. I think Dover has goes to the 15%. Basically, what happens is, as you start getting over higher slopes, usually your soils and everything else become more fragile. Chance for runoff and things like that are usually increased. And as you see,
So this is the darker color is over 25%, which is all this in here.
yeah.
A couple spots in there, and then the lighter, which is even harder to read, is 15 to 25.
I'm actually gonna take a picture and just bring it back like this.
These are on our website too.
yeah, I was wondering about that. If that's still accurate. I don't know what year that was updated, because I was just looking at Granite View at the town and like scrolling around at the slopes. And it seemed like there was a lot more that was over 25. If you look at that, you know, you can barely see any sections on Route 4, but they're up there, but
Yeah, that's not really.
in those areas, like some of those areas that are in the dark gray, it's Pawtucket, but you know, those are over 40. But it doesn't differentiate from that.
Yeah, they're cliffs, actually.
Right.
Aldera cliffs.
And there seemed like there's quite a bit along the lake, which I think you can kind of see too. You know, smaller sections are not like grayed out like the,
So it looks like light gray is 15 to 25? Or,
Yes, the light gray.
yeah.
Yeah,
So we've staged this then, so from 0 to 15%, anything goes. 15 to 24 and a, 4.9.
4.9, yeah.
We have some regulations, and then over 25 and over is another tier of restriction. Is that what we said?
Yeah, there's some setbacks and,
This was done in
Proposed.
2014 by the Stafford Regional Planning Board.
well, if we adopt an overlay, I think that we should also include verbiage that would burden the applicant by showing us what the topography is, just in case that plan does not capture.
That's in there, though, I think. It's C on page 2. I think that covers that.
Gotcha, thank you.
3C.
Okay, site-specific, okay, we're good.
I think it could be argued though, that that's just saying though, like, if it's in the, if it's on the map and they delineate it and they say, well, no, it's actually, 13%. I don't know if that becomes like a loophole.
No, that's A. 3A says that the applicant can argue that the map's not right. But 3C is saying that if the planning board thinks the map's not right, then we can force the applicant to prove that the property's buildable.
Yeah.
That's how I read that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's,
And it might go back to the fact that a lot of times people ask for a waiver of topography outside of the, the area that they're building.
And that's still okay if they're only impacting a portion of that land. If there's steep slopes in the back lot or wherever they're not impacting it, then.
And that's usually the reason to bypass it. Because it's not being,
Touched,
Right.
right?
So then that brings it back to the lot envelope and lot size, to make sure that's the lot envelope then, if that's what we're.
not lot size.
What about accessory buildings, though?
Such as what? Like
It would
a
be,
garage?
it would still be an impact.
Could be a shed or, sugar shack.
I wonder if that should be, pardon the pun, an exception. You know what I mean, looked at individually.
Or by the building inspector. But that only requires a setback of 20 feet from the property line, so it doesn't necessarily have to be in the lot envelope for the main building and for the,
Well, to splice that a little bit, 4B, so if it was a chicken coop or a sugar shack, that's a permitted activity.
and forestry too, yeah, under different
A
regulations.
shed may be different, but.
Right, and I was gonna say, even for something like a sugar house or chicken coop or any of those things, you're not going to be disturbing a slope, and it would be just that individual going, or their family members going out to it. It's not a concern so much for services going out or for the town needing to get there, like with a driveway or something like that.
In the way
And
this,
you're not disturbing a large amount of ground to build a shed.
in the way this is written, it's major subdivisions and site plan reviews, so someone putting a coop up or anything like that, this wouldn't necessarily apply to the way I'm reading it.
And that's only if, in the way this is written, if the disturbance is greater than 30,000 square feet.
I didn't understand that part, because do we ever talk about stuff that would be to that extent?
Well, the disturbance area, that's 3/4 of an acre. I mean, that might be a house site plus the septic field plus the driveway, maybe all added up, that might get close to it, but not many. Not many would.
And then the driveway included?
Yeah, any site disturbance,
Would also include utilities.
yeah, utilities,
Right.
you
So
know.
you're gonna get close to 30,000 if you're starting with raw land, and you're gonna put a driveway in and utility poles, because they don't always follow the driveway. Utility company lots of times wants to take the most direct route.
And of course, the length of the driveway is gonna affect how
Absolutely.
square footage you're talking about.
Sometimes people, it's safer for them to put in a driveway that zigzags back and forth, just rather than a straight shot coming down to the connecting road.
I know somebody like that.
Yeah, you do.
Major subdivision,
Yeah, and is that,
they often don't know this, in particular, the size of the homes that are gonna be placed in the subdivision, correct? I mean, maybe they do, but it's not something that we consider, so.
Well, they would get over a 30,000 square foot pretty easily if they're putting a roadway in. So if they're putting a roadway of, it's gonna access, say, 6 lots, it would probably exceed
default.
that, yeah.
like, but is this talking per lot or per total? My guess would be total, for the total development, because,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
so if it's a total development, yeah, you're gonna get over that, but
Yeah.
if they argue it per lot, then,
Yeah, I would say this is per development.
Probably need to
Mm-hmm. Major
clarify that.
subdivision.
Well, and that's something we need to specify then as well. B needs to be more specific, 3B.
yeah.
Not to change gears, but I don't wanna forget this, we were talking about driveways. The last page, the first B mentions 12% for residential. Does that mean that is that an accept 12% is the maximum regardless in this case? Or is that changing our subdivision from 8% to 12?
Add that flag too, I think it should be, match what we have in our
Okay.
subdivision ordinance, the 8%. Because again, you're cutting, in subdivision ordinance, I think it's page 60, 61 that talks about the roadway and the grade and everything, and so does this somewhere in it. You talk about cut and fills and the max, cause then you get into, stabilization issues. And things like that. So cutting down from 15% or 25% grade to 8 is, or 12 is still pretty significant.
But are you referring to roadway when you're talking about subdivision?
No, I think it was the driveway, 60, 61, the page.
So I would just think the driveway versus roadway could, different.
We have it as,
It says road bed of a driveway or access road.
yeah, we have it as driveway in our subdivision ordinance,
It's 60.
page
Page
61. 61, yeah. Grade, this is the current, driveway grade shall not exceed an 8% grade and shall maintain a negative grade until it's beyond the ditch line.
Yeah.
And we did these after this was looked at, and I remember, I'm pretty certain, we got that grade from Paul talking to the, finding out what fire trucks, ambulances, and delivery vehicles can usually do.
Mr. Chairman, I think we should go section by section on this to see if we agree with what's there, and if not, work it in order to get through this.
Okay, yeah, it's probably a good idea. Or at least take some bigger chunks of this, and I think what about having it written, do we want it written as an overlay district or as something, a zoning requirement for all of Nottingham?
I'm good with zoning.
If we have that as an overlay district, we need an overlay district map, we don't have that.
Right. So we'll have to have a map.
I think it should be zoning.
Thought we had it, but I
Well,
don't see it.
we also have our zoning ordinance references, a different map that we don't have, the one that I'm supposed to be getting the information on from Kyle.
Aquifer district?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that.
That was found, I know, because I kept asking, but I know that had been found, but where it went, again,
94 or something like that. It's black and white and very, very small. And we're doing the best we can because we have a lot of people coming in that are doing stuff over in what would be the overlay district of the watershed. It's-
maybe we need to revisit that.
Because it's referenced in here. But it's not with our zoning ordinance at all.
So I'm more for having it just be not an overlay, because it's, if topography, especially on major site plans, major subdivisions, and it's a requirement, so I don't know why we would necessarily make it more cumbersome on us to kind of go back to a map.
I agree.
Do you need a motion for that?
No, I don't think we need a motion. I think this is more of a workshopping kind of thing, and we'll get to a point where we have a revised, steep slope protection section. And then, once we've gone through that revision, then we'll vote on
We're
it.
good to go.
I think we should take at least consensus on those major parameters like this, and the 15% and some of these other things, so.
What is the suggested change in the topography sand and gravel deposit map? Get rid of that and put something in its place?
Have no map,
Just go off topography.
right? Or are we gonna reference a map? I mean, we will have would we just write it so that if it falls within the area that we have steep slopes based on that map? Or are we just going on the applicant's topography that they're submitting?
There's language about if there's a dispute on the accuracy.
Well, I think that's what we'd get away from if we weren't referencing a map and we were making it a requirement for slope and topography that they're submitting with the application.
Because we as a board always have the authority to, like, if we think that maybe the topography is wrong in the application, we have these maps and other GIS access. You know, if it's vastly different on the application, it's showing, 8% or something, and we suspect it's greater, we can always require, an independent analysis of that.
Yeah, but the applicant's surveys will be done by a licensed professional surveyor, so, for us to go out and say that, no, that surveyor is not right, would have to be pretty significant of a difference.
Right.
So we are relying on that professional to be honest.
And the accuracy of these is getting better. I don't know what year the actual, I know the map is from 2014, but I don't know what year the data is from, if it was LiDAR or whatever, but, it's getting much more accurate. So used to be such a wide stretch between, where it was shown on the map and how accurate it was. Could be like, well, it's actually 1,000 feet this way is where that line falls, and it shows it over there, but.
I like the idea of a map being referenced, because it shows where the plan sits in the overall topography of the community and in the area, rather than just having a map and you don't see what's beyond the boundaries of that application. It could be that something that the developer will be doing will impact a sensitive area that's outside of the boundary of the plan.
Because when Mom and I went to a math reading class last year, I think it was, one of the recommendations was that you require all major subdivisions and site plans applications to submit an overlay, a topography map, not just of their area of disturbance, was Granite State, right? Or something along those lines, but that they submitted of that general vicinity within, I don't know, maybe, say like 5-mile radius or something.
Or
But that can be
watershed, yeah,
required.
yeah.
Yeah, we can make that as a requirement, that they give us an aerial view, or one of those languages.
Yeah.
Now, Joanna, you said that we need a special map to have an overlay district?
We don't, yeah. 'cause we don't have-
But we refer to that map in this, proposed,
We refer to it, yes, but we don't have anything that actually delineates overlay districts in any of our maps.
well, we have a whole overlay district section in our,
But each one of those have different limits with which a map.
yeah, but do we have
Determines
maps
it.
that go with all these different things, the Aquifer Protection District?
We don't have a map for that one.
Yeah, that's what Joanne was saying.
Yeah, we need
Missing-
to. We have, there's a very old map, but there
Very
needs to be an
old,
update.
It's not even online.
Well, that we have a lot more work to do than just adding a new section to Article 3. All of Article 3 is wrong, is what you're saying.
Well, it's not wrong, it's just we need updated maps.
Well, that's another entity in itself, it's to go into the mapping.
Right.
Yeah, 'cause you're saying,
Mapping.
ideally, we would have this map, but we'd have one that says steep slopes overlay district.
Or just an overlay district with all of the overlay districts.
Yeah.
You know, right? Yeah. So, like, have the aquifer, the steep slope, all of the ones that we referenced.
Yeah, and I think the steep slope isn't as, if we reference a map, because we're referencing a specific map that we have versus that one where we don't necessarily know what the status of it is.
Because I did ask Kyle, Kyle said, no, we did not do an aquifer protection.
Yeah. Because like town center district has like a specific, you know, tax maps that are referenced, so it gives you it that way. But that one's the most vague.
Okay, so do we want a map or do we not want a map?
How much will it cost and how long will it take?
Well, Joanne's getting a proposal right now from,
Make that a-
for the
Please
aquifer
explain to me
map.
what's wrong with this map before we proceed to authorizing a new map. What's wrong with this map?
Oh, there isn't anything wrong with this map. No, what we would end up doing is because this already has the slopes on it, we could reference this map as the steep slope map. You know, we could say it as overlay district per that map for the limits of 15.1 to 25% and greater than 25%. We could do that. My opinion is that why do we even need a map when we're getting the topography in with the application? And that's where we can say, you know, it's already surveyed, we know what's 25% and what's 15%. And here on that, you know, scale of a map, it's very difficult to pick out the property unless it's smack right in the middle of one of those.
Okay, so you're saying this limits what the purview of the board. By having it refer to this map, it limits our purview. Whereas if we base it on the surveys that's done by the engineer when they approach us, we take each case on its own as to whether it fits the steep slope.
Well, yes, the applicant will be required to design what they're doing all within, you know, what we have for our steep slopes. And then if we feel that they're not, then, you know, we have to make comment to whatever, but they would have to meet the requirements.
So then this whole steep slope ordinance won't fit into the overlay district. We'll have to find a different place to fit it into our ordinances.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
Okay.
alternative.
I just want to make sure I understood where you're going with this.
Yeah.
So you're getting it out of the overlay districts altogether.
Yeah, is this available online? Is it on what is it, on tax maps, they can do the layer? Is that where it is?
Not on the tax map one, but you have this particular one, if you go into the town website and do a search maps, it'll
Yeah.
come up with all of those.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes it even harder on an applicant too, because then they're trying to like figure out where their parcel is on that versus if they're doing the survey.
So if you're asking if it can be done as one of the overlays on the tax map one, you just check.
Yeah, I'm more of a feeling with Dirk is that I don't really think the map is necessary since we require the topography be done by a licensed engineer or a licensed individual. That's part of the application anyway.
I mean, I think it can just be its own, provision, its own zoning provision.
So we're talking about putting it in zoning.
Just like outdoor lighting, have a steep slope.
In that, when, in the mention of looking outside the, let's say it's a large subdivision, and it would be beneficial to see topography outside the particular area. Am I wrong about, in thinking that we have authority to ask for that extra topography?
Right, and maybe that's just something we'll have to consider in our application process, or the requirements of our application, is that they provide an aerial topography or something that's readily available with their site on it that is within a 1 mile vicinity or whatever.
I just found that, again, it's the USA topo maps on our
Okay.
website. We do have access to that. And so would the applicant.
And it would be section E, because we have, D is now our wireless communication overlay district. In section 3, if we did it, is the, so I think maybe that's why this was originally done as an overlay, going back to, and it could still be an overlay district without referencing a map.
Well, what is the benefit of having it in overlay? I noticed that overlay seems to have all of the sensitive areas, like your aquifer, your conservation, and that stuff in it.
Yep.
So, to me, it makes sense to have it there because it is a sensitive,
It keeps it all together.
yeah, special considerations, if you will, more than anything, rather, but I would call it overlay, but, I think could it be in both places? Have it contained in both?
No, we want it in one place.
Okay,
I think we want it like as an overlay district, or we want it as a section, just so we don't have to go back and forth between them, that's all.
So when you were out of the room, Dirk, we talked about the capacity of many developers being able to image 3D for their projects. They have the technology to present plans.
Yep.
It might be worthwhile for a plan that has steep slopes to ask for that.
I think that, and also site walks for areas, you have developments where it's pretty, it's all uplands and
Yeah, we can do sidewalks.
it's pretty easy, you could see that, okay, there's not really much going on in the lot, there's no major wetlands, it's upland areas, and sometimes site walks aren't warranted on those cases, but areas where if there's a bunch of things coming up, then I think the board is always, behooves the board to do a site walk or start doing it.
Yeah, we can do those regardless, it's not, I don't think it would be just for steep slopes.
Just reading that.
All right, so we need to get some headway here. Do we need to just take a poll on whether we want to go the overlay district or go in its own section as a special, general provision?
Well, there already is a couple of these like the flood hazard area and the wireless communication overlay district, those do not refer to any maps.
Right.
So I can see no reason why we can't just leave it in the overlay district.
Okay, well, that's fine,
That's my opinion.
we can,
That's all, that's my,
I don't know, it's, why don't we just take a poll of hands and we'll just see how everybody's thinking right now with all of this information. Those thinking that they wanna keep it as an overlay district, raise your hand. Overlay district?
I don't know what the alternative is.
I don't know the difference, so.
I guess I don't know where else we would put it, that's the only reason.
I think it's just terminology anyway.
Yeah, I know, I just, what's the difference between an overlay district and whatever alternative we're considering?
That was my thing. It's like, I'm going back and forth. I like it in both places.
Where else?
It's not gonna matter,
Where else
really.
would you go?
I mean, how do-
Or as a
what-
general
How do you
provision?
How do you define an overlay district, I guess?
Put it in as a general
How it's
provision.
Planning board 101 here.
Right. If you're coming, if you're coming with a plan, how is that individual gonna know if they're in the overlay district, if there isn't a map to refer to? They're gonna have to survey the land anyway and then say, oh, look, we're following, I don't understand why an overlay district would have any more value than.
No, for us, it's just a matter of, I think, keeping, the thought right now is,
Simple.
because it keeps it with the other sensitive areas in the zoning ordinance.
That was my
And I just don't know where else it would go that it would not become clouded or harder to find.
That was my other question. If it's not worthy of being an overlay district, then what would it be and where?
Because otherwise you take it out, you take it out of zoning and put it into subdivision regs.
No, I think it needs to be in zoning because it would just end up falling into a general provision.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying, so Article 4, general provisions, somewhere in
Yeah, it
there.
would be in an Article 4 general provision.
But if we keep it as an overlay district, that gives us an opportunity to get an updated map down the road. We could reference this one, and then if
But it
we,
won't matter one way or the other if we get an application in. If there's a major subdivision or a site plan, we're gonna have the topography. I don't have a lot of value in the map, but if,
Right, the applicant's gonna provide the map.
they're gonna
Oh,
provide
yes,
the mapping,
yes, yeah.
they're gonna need to provide the calculation of how much of the land is within steep slopes and is not in steep slopes, so you can't do that with this map.
Right.
What overlay maps to me say is that this is a boundary around a sensitive area, that, you have certain restrictions that are spelled out in the zoning that you can do for development. Now, what's complicated about it is there's just pockets all over the place of these steep slopes. And so each one of these circles that are there is a overlay of our town. So there's, probably 300 different locations that have that. It's just a hard thing to keep regulating. That's just my opinion.
So just reading through the table of contents in the zoning, I would still say it probably makes more sense as an overlay district without referencing a map.
Right.
That's fine if that's the location. I just don't wanna get it too complicated where, we're referring to maps that
Yeah.
aren't really
No, and I don't,
meant for determining percentages of slope.
but I think we can do it without, we can do an overlay district without a map, without an overlay.
Okay. Well, I think that won, because it was gonna be 4 against 3.5.
I don't think it really, I can change my vote. It doesn't really matter.
No, I think let's move on. So we'll keep it as an overlay district. Maybe referencing a map, maybe not referencing a map, but let's go to the definition. So there's a bunch of definitions. I think most of these are fairly standard.
I was trying to see what was in our
And
current.
I think we want to look at this steep slope. My opinion is 15% is too much. Too little.
Okay.
Too restrictive. I'd rather go to like a 25.
What's the science on that, though? What's the science on that?
It's actually the slope stability of soil itself.
So it's the
So it's-
soils, it's vegetation, it's the.
Well, so what we're trying to protect is, so the vegetation's gonna be basically gone. Once, I mean, if they're impacting it and they're disturbing the soil, that's gonna be gone. The most critical time is prior to, vegetation taking root. So it's when it's just bare soil, and these are the percentages you see are typically based off the angle of repose of soil just, kind of being thrown down. Typically, that's around 40%. So anything above 40% is just gonna fall down the hill. Anyway, so you put it in a pile, it's just gonna keep falling down. So anything above that is definitely not. So the, kind of the rule of thumb has been this 25%, or somewhere in there. And that's been in my experience of a steep slope. Now, when we say 8% for driveways, just to give that as something relative, is that when you're going to, say, a wheelchair ramp, when you're going from the roadway to a sidewalk, those are typically greater than 8%. So that 8% isn't a lot. It's, it's a rise of 6 inches over, 5 feet. So it's not a great amount. My opinion, that is, our driveway one is still restricted at 8%. But for steep slopes, that's the primary thing, is when you're disturbing something, and then once it's vegetated, it can stay there. It's not gonna keep further eroding. That's my input.
How steep is your driveway, Gary?
It's probably,
20%?
no, it isn't, because it's
Oh, it's switchbacks.
this way.
Yeah.
So it's probably 8 to 10.
Oh,
Mine's probably 15 at least. Probably before that was in place, but.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've designed rows at 20%. I mean, it's in mountainous terrain, but there's no way around it. But that's almost as steep as you ever wanna be, because then you'll, wet pavement, you'll lose traction, and then, it's just not a good scenario. So you try and stay less than that, but 8, 10, 15%, 15% is kind of a definite max around here with snow. I mean, if you're in a regular, even a 4-wheel drive car, to get up a 15% grade with snow on the ground, you're probably not making it.
Well, and plus, if it's not paved, if it's gets up anywhere near 15%, I know, because I have a long gravel driveway, you get a lot of erosion.
Yeah.
I frankly don't know if we wanna mess with the driveway one without bringing in fire chief, maybe police, whatever.
Well, I think we ought to if we're gonna do this, we ought to match the driveway one to our new,
The subdivisions.
subdivision regulation.
Yeah, these should definitely match. I agree with that.
I think we could probably take a look at, not that we're bound by what neighboring towns are doing, but I think it always behooves us to see what other towns are doing, because developers that are developing in one town tend to be developing in another, and they like conformity. I think it would helpful, so if they're used to mapping out and cutting out the, 15 to 25% or 15% greater versus, or 25% greater, it makes it easier, and then we could also look at the science behind it.
So I did a quick poll. So I've got Londonderry's is 33%, Hollis is 25%. I didn't check anyone else in this area.
But those are farming communities, and they have a lot of flat.
Londonderry?
Doesn't they have, don't they have farms there?
Apple farms, sure.
Apple trees. What about Deerfield? They have a topography similar to ours.
Yeah, I didn't check anyone else with those. Those ones I just had on my desk, so that's what I looked at.
It's definitely worth checking with the fire chief, because, you would probably wanna consider the largest vehicle, because it's a function of length. When you're talking about a large vehicle going uphill, So it's the length of the vehicle, the longest vehicle they got is gonna be most affected by a steeper slope.
The approach angle too. They're limited by just the approach.
But that's,
Like with zigzags,
that's
you might have like a, 15 to 20% slope in each leg of it, but making that turn is where you're gonna have the most trouble, because when the vehicle is halfway through, it's gonna be steeper between those legs. And that's where trucks bottom out and get stuck, May not be as big of a concern for like a septic pumper or something, but a ladder truck or a crane, if somebody's, bringing in a crane to dig a deeper well or something,
Well,
those
that's-
longer vehicles are gonna bottom out.
That's actually what Paul did before he did the regulations, the subdivision regulations, was talk to the fire department and the police department. That's where he came up with the 8% from. So, I don't know if we need to revisit it or not, but that was done recently. That was done like last year, I think.
Yeah, no harm in validating, I suppose.
yeah, well, that's, we can.
Because you're right,
Double
yeah.
check that.
Because we are on well and septic, so there's always gonna be we talk about the public safety side of things, besides fire, or those things, it's,
But that's kind of the driveway piece of it. The 15 and the 25% slopes, we're talking about slopes that are, left gravel, or, these are hillsides or whatever. It's anything that's disturbed that has greater than those slopes. Could be a driveway, could be all of those things above. That's what this is regulating.
All right, now, Derek, when you said that you wanted to go to 25%, are you talking about for the whole lot, or just the lot envelope? The 30,000 square foot fit for building?
Just as the trigger to be a steep slope, in the definition to be a steep slope.
But what if the 30,000 square foot fit for building is all under 25, but as soon as you get out of that, it drops to 40?
So, I have a question, and
So just to answer his, is that, so the site area wouldn't constitute the disturbance.
So all we're really interested in is the
Is that-
30,000
is-
square foot fit for building.
No, we're concerned about the driveway, because if that's gonna be above the 40, if it's 40%
Like I said, we
slope,
were getting away from the driveway and talking about where we're gonna build the houses now.
so, all right, then the power line. So anything that disturbs it, even if it's in the building envelope or outside the building envelope, to get out to the street, that's disturbance. And so anything above 25% has to meet this criteria, has to meet the criteria in there. Just like anything above, right now, anything greater than 15% has to meet this criteria. That's what we're saying in the steep slopes. So whether it's 25 or 15, it's saying the same thing, that we're regulating anything that's above that.
I wonder why we're even put B in there for 3B. Why do we restrict it to where, site disturbance has to be over 30,000 square feet? Why do we even put that in? Because if we're saying that you can't include it in the lot size, and
question I have is, the state subdivisions, for their applications, I thought I had heard something like they take an overall grade of the property. I don't want to say overall,
You almost got it, Joe.
I need a new map.
We need a new easel.
Look at that.
The map's,
It's a
map's
new-
fine.
Can you call that an easel if it's not actually doing?
It's not easy.
It's a leansel.
You guys weren't looking at it anymore anyway, right?
I'm just glad it didn't come this way.
I wonder how many people that woke up.
Woke Joanne up.
So to your question, I'm wondering if that's, maybe there's no reason for it to be that amount, but is it because of the potential environmental impact and the reason for the steep slope ordinance in the first place? 30,000 square feet or more could create, that's that much more opportunity for runoff and erosion, and I just don't know why that would be the number unless there's some science behind that being a significant amount.
I feel like if that's in there, you know, so right now, this was worded around for applicability to be for major subdivisions and new site plan applications, so we're trying to be cognizant of not necessarily overburdening, like, you know, people in town that are carving off a lot for their children or things like that, or just a single lot. 'Cause I feel like if we were applying this to minor subdivisions as well, in the case, you know, with that as the like kind of requirement of, or the caveat to it, where a minor subdivision with a site disturbance greater than 30,000 square feet, this would also apply or something like that, so that would kind of carve out, that would alleviate the, you know, single family lot that's going in, most likely. But not, you know, if it's someone carving out 3 lots, which they're gonna sell, and it's just outside the major subdivision, so they're not falling into all the other criteria we have for a major subdivision of a road and things like that, but it's,
So you're thinking we would do, shall apply to major subdivisions, new site plans, and anything disturbance greater than 30,000?
I was just saying, I don't know why we would have it in there by itself otherwise. I don't know why it would.
All right, I want to go back to Teresa's suggestion that we just take this section by section.
Definition, erosion. that'd be
Definition,
amending
erosion, we're good?
No, we'd be amending
Impervious surface.
our current definition.
So, I think we can, why don't we leave the 15% in there and just move on? And, you know, whether there's more digging on 25% or less or whatever, we can come back to that.
As far as definitions go, Dirk, I was looking them over while listening at the same time. Erosion.
Not paying attention to us, were you?
I was. It was like this wah, wah, wah in my ear. No, I was listening. The definitions, erosion needs to be changed because it doesn't match what we have already in our regulation.
It's a land disturbance activity.
Impervious surface is okay. It's only defined in our state book. It's not in any of our other regulations. Runoff is not defined elsewhere. Steep slope is not defined elsewhere. Sedimentation and slope are similar, and vegetative cover is not defined elsewhere that I could find. Maybe in site plan, I didn't check site plan, but I did look at subdivision and ZO for those.
Okay.
But that's what I've
So
uncovered
we'll
so
have to
far.
update those and make sure they're coordinated with the other ones.
I've got it written down so you can,
Okay, but the thing is, you said they're similar. Do we want, for the ones that you said were similar, do
Correct.
we want to choose one over the other so that they are all the same and non-similar?
Yes.
Okay, so do you want me to take a comparison for another meeting and then we can choose from that comparison?
Yep.
Okay.
So now we're going into steep slope protection district. Steep slope protection district, the authority, that's fine.
I agree with that.
You agree with that? All right. Did you look up the RSA?
I did.
All right.
It's very broad.
It doesn't say much.
Purpose, general health and welfare, that's always the purpose.
The only thing on purpose, I think we talked about this before, with slopes greater than 15, or should we say 15% or greater? Because usually it's, the way they're shown on soils maps and things, it's 1 to 8, 8 to 15, 15 to 25, 25 and greater, or whatever. So I think we got into that before.
Yeah, 15% greater.
So greater than 15%.
Greater than 15%.
Let's keep it at that, okay.
Not equal to or greater than. Is that what you're saying?
If I remember right,
Or greater.
Or up to 15%, but not including?
I think we got stuck on this, it was like, would it be like 15.001?
on here, it's 15.1% to 25.
On that map, I think that's why we
That's why we said
went back,
Over 50.
because we were.
Greater than 15%.
It's greater than 15, so we're coordinated with that map. So we've got, the district streams protect, these are the reasons, protecting natural, preserving natural topography, slope stability.
The only thing I didn't know if we wanted to add into that about, where we talked about it in authority or applicability or somewhere in there, or later on, about the public health and safety.
It's in there.
Ensures safe egress, ingress,
Or, yeah.
or something, but I don't know if we need it, but that's
I
another,
would,
that's
'cause
another one of the.
I mean, that's one of the key reasons, I mean, it's not just about erosion control and keeping the ditches looking pretty, it's for first responder access and commercial access, deliveries and septic pumpers,
So we can add an F,
swimming pool water.
accessibility.
Something to that nature.
Ensures safe egress and access. and
Ingress and egress for,
And I think that should be number one, should be A. For the public
Yeah.
good.
They're all equal weighted.
That's right. They're all both good.
They're all important. So the applicability, requirements shall apply to major subdivisions, new site plans. Now, this would be just applications within the steep slope protection district as delineated by the steep slopes on the topography, sand and gravel deposit map.
I recommend that we scratch from on to amended.
From on,
On the
oh, okay, on the topography.
Yep. If you scratch that, it makes, it's not referring to the map anymore, but it still makes sense.
So including the word on then,
Yeah.
okay.
Buzz, could you say that again?
If you take we're on 3 applicability.
Yeah, got it.
And
Here.
Third sentence.
when you get past the greater than 15% in parentheses, then scratch everything from there to the end of the sentence.
Gotcha, thank you.
So period after parentheses.
Yep.
Done.
So when we say delineated, that's just referring to the plan itself, where they're delineating it. Steep slope protection district.
Yeah,
Right,
the engineer is gonna have to
Yep.
designate
Right.
what the steep slopes are.
So by striking those words, you're taking that map out of the equation.
Right.
Right.
So then we can get rid of the A, which is the incorrectly delineated ones on the map, right?
Yes, we could delete that.
Yeah, I don't think we need to add anything in there again about the board reserves the right to,
So we do need to be more specific on B.
Or less specific.
No, more, and if you're looking at, is it per lot or per project?
All right, first of all, this whole ordinance applies to major subdivisions, okay? So, why do we have to put out, what does the 30,000 square feet mean at all? The requirements are gonna be to any major subdivision. These requirements will apply to any major subdivision.
right. So that's what I was saying, trying to get to earlier. I think we can either scratch B, if we're keeping the applicability as major subdivisions and new site plan applications, or apply this to minor subdivisions in a very specific way, and that would be only those that are gonna be disturbing
30,000.
larger areas
Right.
of land, so they won't meet the state's requirement of, I think it's 100,000 square feet for
Site specific.
to be a, to fall into that regulation. But it's also not hammering the small subdivisions, the minor subdivisions that are, you know, are cut and dry, easy, and really, you know, have nothing else, you know,
It seems to hold to the
Hold them back.
intent of the ordinance overall, I think.
right, I know we always try to be cautious of not overly restricting, you know, our current residents, especially the ones that are doing a small subdivision, because it's probably gonna be for people that are staying here, versus a major subdivision, which is, you know, generally an outside developer that's coming in and changing it and, you know, and then leaving.
So, as applicability goes, the requirements for this section shall apply to all major subdivisions and new site plan applications within the steep slope protection district as delineated as steep slopes greater than 15% slope. All such applications shall be consistent with the goals of the town master plan. Then, if you if you cut out A and B and the first line of C, the map delineated for the steep slopes is approximate, and start with, the applicant shall be responsible for field delineated slopes on a site-specific basis. In any case, the board may need to judge if and when the slopes are properly delineated. So it simplifies the whole thing by getting that mess out of the,
Yeah, I like that.
and it doesn't take anything away from the applicability, because the applicability is for major subdivisions.
So C would begin, the applicant shall,
Right.
Right.
okay. Yeah, no, that actually makes more sense.
We're striking B altogether.
Correct. A and B.
Then in D, I still question, what is minimum lot size? Should that say minimum lot envelope or minimum lot size? The area of the lot that is less than 15% only shall comprise the area to meet the requirements for minimum lot. That's still confusing me.
That whole paragraph is,
Yes,
Confusing.
I agree.
I don't know why the word effective is in there in the beginning.
Because it's calculating, it's saying,
what is usable.
But what is a minimum lot size? We have
right,
2-acre lots, we have,
Should be building envelope.
I think, that's what I think it is, because the building envelope is consistent all through our zoning.
Yes.
yeah, and I don't think, yeah, because I don't think anywhere else in our zoning do we change the acreage size based on what's there. It's, like you said, it's the lot envelope, that's the,
And if
Governing of it.
if you take minimum lot size and change that to
Buildable.
minimum or buildable lot envelope, or however you want to say it, and do the same thing down below, then the paragraph seems to make a little more sense to me anyway.
It's still a confusing paragraph.
Yep.
It is.
So we're going with lot envelope. Or building
Well,
envelope.
And what do we want to actually say in this thing, period? Is it that we want to have the buildable envelope not have any of the 15% or contain just a small portion of it? I mean, that's really what we need to determine, because that's where this is focusing on, is what are we looking at on that lot? The area they can build. How much of it is steep slope? What are we going to accept?
The way I'm reading this is that we can't, that nothing can be over 15% that's in the buildable lot area.
That's what it should say.
Now, whether it says that or not,
Whether it's written that way.
that's what I think we were trying to say when we wrote this.
Why can't we just say it simply like that?
Yeah, no area above 15% can be used for determining the lot size.
Maybe counted towards,
Simplifies it.
maybe counted towards a lot envelope.
Lot size or envelope?
Envelopes.
Building on,
So slopes greater than 15% cannot be used for the area to meet the requirements for the minimum building envelope.
What you said first was no area greater than 15% can be counted towards building envelope. In that,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I was saying lot envelope.
Pardon me?
Lot, I'd go with lot envelope, because
Load envelope.
that's our
That matches ours, okay.
Lot, envelope,
Yeah.
not building, okay.
Because the building envelope is specific to
Greater
the
than 15%.
house.
Okay,
Yes.
so that makes more sense.
So D would simply state, no area greater than 15% can be counted towards lot envelope. Right?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
Or would you want to say counted towards calculating the lot envelope size, just to be a little more specific about the purpose?
Yeah. I think we can, I think if we're getting to the gist of things here, then we can wordsmith them a little bit more
Yeah, yeah.
in a,
I was thinking the people that are gonna poke through this are folks like me that are reading this stuff for the first time. They're gonna be making incorrect assumptions based on words that are there and aren't there. So,
I think the rest of that paragraph is okay.
I just want to comment though, it's not just lot size, but lot dimensions. So you want, a lot size that's gonna be compatible with building a house and doing everything else. You don't want something that looks like an hourglass.
Well, we have that in our regulations.
Yeah.
Right.
Right,
Lot
but that
shape.
not be reflected here. Lot size and dimensions.
Why would we reflect it here if it's already a restriction that they have to meet in another area?
Okay, never mind.
I do have a, I'm trying to find the language and I'm not, but, just going back to the fact that the intent of this is major subdivisions, not to overly burden smaller owners. Thinking, fix one problem, create another one, and I don't know if anyone will do this logically, but I've got a large piece of land and I'm just gonna piecemeal every 4 years or whatever the time frame is and bypass. I've got steep land, but the only way to develop it now is to do one chunk every few years based on, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you gotta remember too, these lots are gonna outlive the families that are living in those properties currently. So you gotta think of 50, 60, 100 years from now, we're probably not gonna have flying cars, so those steep driveways are gonna affect people
Over time.
decades ahead, when the current families are long gone.
I know I'm backtracking a few minutes, but I was trying to find the. I'm thinking of certain plans that we've seen recently, not to call out any specifically, but that's what I would do if this was in place. Maybe.
So you,
Not saying I'm unethical, but
They're
so you'd take
conniving.
16 years to sell off
it's
4
the only
lots.
way that I can do it.
But you could do 3 at a time, that's the thing.
Or it could be over generations too. Eventually, the result's gonna be the same.
I just wanna make sure we're thinking that if we truly have some of those things as our intent of the ordinance, you're creating a loophole potentially where you're missing the boat.
That's why,
That might go back to Ed's point about if it's greater than 30,000 feet.
it's kind of, yeah, where I was going, and if we're gonna capture them, I think we should capture, if we're gonna capture minor subdivisions, I think we should capture them selectively.
Right.
It shouldn't be, you know, broad stroked. You know, if it is like a single lot, it's probably unlikely, I don't know, I would think it would be unlikely that they're gonna disturb 30,000 square feet.
So what's the rationale by having different rules between minor and major subdivisions? Is it ethical?
It's the, I think it's the amount of information. I mean, there's a lot more detail that we're requesting for major subdivisions than minor subdivisions.
Right.
And so there's a lot more cost for that detail, for the developer or landowner. And if a landowner, I mean, so they would have to have, if they're doing 3 lots, then they'd have to have the full survey, the full engineering,
Yeah.
you know, all of that.
Soup to nuts.
Yeah. And that's a huge impact for 3 lots.
Less likely to recoup if you're selling them off,
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to,
or as much.
they wouldn't be a market value compared to a large subdivision.
Sure.
I guess that's the rationale.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Let's try and get through this. So the permitted activities, we've got forestry, logging, tree farming, I think that's agriculture, silviculture, state regulated outdoor recreation, single-family resident development is permitted where on-site investigation determines that sewage disposal access roads can be constructed in accordance with paragraph 6 performance standards. So we are capturing.
No, it's just limiting it to single family.
What else would a 3 lots
Multifamily.
multifamily? Okay.
It also doesn't actually say, so no commercial or industrial are allowed under that.
There's no commercial or industrial allowed for this?
None are, I mean, permitted activities, we have,
For permitted activities, yeah.
yeah.
No, they would have to go through a permit to get those activities like a industrial use, because that would be a site plan. Application requirements. Disturbance ordinance, subdivision references.
How about B under there, under performance standards, 6B? Did we just determine that there is no commercial in this ordinance?
But the stormwater would still come into play though.
Yeah, residential subdivision will have to have stormwater management. Commercial, why are we saying that commercial is not, you can't do commercial?
Well, it's not listed as a permitted use.
Permitted activities. So why would you have a site plan application if none of these uses require a site plan application?
That's a good point.
For change, it's just a change of use, but it wouldn't fall into this either. And it should say permitted use, not permitted activities, just to be consistent with our other overlays.
So we're saying on no land that has a slope greater than 15%, can there be commercial or industrial?
I think it would have to go to zoning, right?
Hence,
I think it's probably pretty unlikely a commercial or industrial place would want to, Wouldn't necessarily build on a sloped area, but
Well, how about a cell tower?
Now, we have that.
That's,
That's a permitted use,
Wind turbines?
telecommunications.
But those are definitely commercial.
Yeah, we wouldn't, they'd need a variance.
But my point on 6B was that the 12 and the 10% should both be changed to 8% to match our current
driveway.
driveways and subdivision regulations.
You're already on that section?
Yes,
You're trying to rush us through?
I
That's
thought-
fine, that's
I
fine.
thought you said we were going to, or we're still on application requirements.
Yeah, we're on 5B.
Oh, sorry.
No, wait, I'm sorry, we're on, we're
All right, I
actually,
like your speed.
we're actually not on 5, we're back on 4D.
Okay.
He heard paragraph 6 and he went immediately to section 6.
I did.
Is it possible that that was an oversight when this was written?
That it does not include commercial or, I think that's way too limiting on the land that we have in Nottingham to say that, you know, nothing greater than 15% can be used for commercial.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree too.
Because all the other things would be in effect. The intent of the ordinance would still be in effect. I think some of these other things were, specifically if there's significant activity on that property that could further disturb the steep slopes. That was
Yeah,
what it
I
was.
mean, of course, outdoor recreation and conservation uses is permitted.
Yeah.
Why are we saying that?
Just in case.
Wait, you can't go into the property and hike if it's over 15%, you gotta come back.
Just say it.
What do you mean? I wanna walk up the mountain. Nope, you can't. It's greater than 15%. It's right in our ordinance, gotta get a waiver. Gotta get a waiver to hike up Pawtuckaway.
No, it says it's allowed.
Oh, it's allowed.
I think that was put in there. I think there were certain things put in here, like that was specifically to maybe encourage it, and then the forestry and agriculture is because it's regulated separately. It's separate outside our purview. But it's put in there just to kind of remind us of that.
I don't know if we should have regulations that refer to other regulations.
The hard part with that is that whenever there are changes made, you then have to find where they are and change
have to
them.
research every single one.
Yeah, and if they delete something completely, then you'd have to be aware of it constantly, so it is an issue when you have it.
Yeah. It's just redundancy that seems to create too many problems than it might be worth.
Okay, so we should consider, and I'm not saying it is, but we should consider having commercial as a permitted use.
With specific language, yeah.
Yeah, so we can, let's just add in commercial
I don't know if
right
it's-
now, and we can,
Letter F.
yeah, as letter F, and then we'll come up with some language. Because otherwise we won't get through this. So applicate, now we're on 5.
On 5, could somebody tell me where section X or 10, lot disturbance of this ordinance is? Because I've been looking for it and can't find it.
That's the one that was also not approved,
Okay,
and that's why this was completely nixed to begin with at that meeting, because if we didn't do lot disturbance, then this one had language that needed to be changed.
okay. So that does not exist.
It exists, just not in our ordinance right now. I could print it, we can review it again if you all want.
But it's not approved, so
Correct.
these would have to be coupled back together? Lot disturbance?
In order to use that part of the language, yes.
I think we could, instead of putting it as a separate ordinance, we could always look at it to see if there's any language from that that could be pulled into this, or,
Or somewhere else within the ZO. And it says of this ordinance, so it's the zoning ordinance, right? And the Nottingham subdivision regulations. Just this one.
Someone
Including,
tell me what the lot disturbance thing that you guys are referring to, and how is that different from the subdivision 10.2? Which is grading, erosion, and sediment control plan.
I think
Well, that's
some of
what
that
we're
was
now.
captured. I
In
think
the
you're right. I
update.
think some of that from that was captured in the rewrite of the subdivision regs.
So maybe we are,
So Paul incorporated some of the pieces when we did these. There was some of the ideas that were from this, instead of making their own separate thing or whatever, they're incorporated in here now. So
In the subdivision, so
it's a good point.
do we need to put it in this?
No, because I mean, I think it's redundant.
Okay, so topography plan, yes. 2-foot contours, yes.
That's already in our,
Stormwater management plan, prepared, stamped. That's already in there, but. Final grading plan for construction site, all access routes, not limited disturbance areas, footprints.
the only reason you might put those in here is if we are gonna have them be a requirement automatically with these versus an option.
Well, yeah, I mean, the application requirements
I
should
agree
really
with
be
those.
in the subdivision regulation.
Right.
Well, I don't even know why we have 5 in here. So, unless they're applying to the zoning, but they're not applying to the zoning.
No, this is old, though. Section 5 has been replaced.
right, I was looking for it.
Take 5 out. So 6, performance standards,
Are you saying take application requirements out completely?
yep,
Is that what you just said?
that's what I said.
Okay.
the
whole
only
thing.
one that I have a question on, because it came up in that last plan. The routing, like very specific routing and measurements for the driveways and driveway plan. Is that sufficiently covered by the existing subdivision? I know there's a driveway section, but I don't know, does it get into the specificity of the
C.
application? Yeah.
Well, if we strike that whole section, we're striking the requirement for a topographic plan with two-foot contour intervals
Wait, that's already actually part of our subdivision.
Yeah.
It's,
elsewhere,
yeah.
and a stormwater management plan.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
That's covered elsewhere?
It's optional now. We can require it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can,
So all of these items are
Covered
But I
elsewhere.
think
covered
the point
elsewhere?
there is
So
that we
this
should make sure that
really
this-
is totally redundant?
it has more.
Yeah, so we have grading
Detail,
erosion.
so it has
control
equal
plan,
detail.
subdivision.
And it might be, I can't find that section now, but I just wanna make sure we're not missing that.
Okay.
See, I was right to move on to 6.
So go ahead.
have anything on that, Buzz?
6B, we just gotta change that to 8%.
For residential,
And commercial.
both?
Oh, why would we want the road any steeper to get emergency vehicle up to a commercial site than to a,
Let's see.
That only applies to the roadbed or the driveway.
correct.
Do we even need that? Because if it's already in our subdivision regs,
You're right,
it's just driveway, but
you're right.
we must have it about
We might be able to get rid of it
roadways,
altogether.
too. It might be the roadway part. That's driveway design. So we must have somewhere with the roadway design.
Yeah, road, 15.2 is road classification and design.
Is that a zoning thing or a subdivision?
Thing of subdivision.
But this is specifically application requirements, not,
No, this is,
Driveway?
this is performance.
oh, we're already on performance, sorry.
So I think we do need to leave it in, because it talks about the roadway, and I don't think our roadway design mentions slope.
Maybe we can leave it in, just to make them consistent. And here's where we go to another threshold on slopes exceeding 25%. The following shall apply. Driveway shall submit a grading plan that demonstrates no other routing possible. Any driveway or access must be designated at slope length. And slope length is 75.
What page are you on, Dirk?
I'm in 6, the end of it. I'm back on the performance standards of this.
Oh, you're still back, you're back on this.
I'm in your section.
I thought you were in subdivision, trying to find, regulation for,
For road designs?
mhm.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
Yeah.
That's on page 58. 58.
So we'd have to look at E again.
Hey, there it is.
I think we should look, cross-reference our subdivision regs to see if we're being redundant.
I think what we want is on page 58 and 59.
Yeah, but then it says minimum design requirements. Minimum road design standards and shown.
It says the board may impose a more restrictive standard for commercial and industrial. And, table 1. Just take
Yeah, so the grade is spelled out on page 61.
Yeah, 8%, number 4.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we could then leave
It's strictly
Six-
driveway.
6B out altogether.
It's driveway, not access road, though.
No, this is not an access road. This 6B says roadway of a driveway, the roadbed of a driveway.
Or
Or
access
access
road. Or road access, I'm sorry, road exceed.
Or
Or
access road.
access road exceed.
Where is it saying it? Where's the 8%?
8% is on page 61, it's number 4 at the top, grade
61
in the subdivision regs.
for
Even subdivision?
14.7.7.
No, no,
Page
the
60.
page doesn't look like mine does right now.
My page
Go
does not look like
that
yours.
way. Oh, I'm sorry, the other way.
What do I have, an old one?
Keep going. It's 15,
Do you have the subdivision?
15.3.2.
Are you looking in subdivision?
Site plan.
Oh, yeah.
It had 8%
No, it
ditches,
is.
not roads.
So we have the appendix which shows a roadway design, but it doesn't speak about, it just shows the slopes on the side.
Page 61, Dirk.
Cistern.
Still not right.
15.3.2.
15.3.2, so that's not 61 for me.
It's 60 for me.
Yeah, me too.
It depends on if you
But that's
have
just
the one that
driveways.
has the signatures, or if you have the one without the signatures. That's
Very
where
confusing.
the pages change.
Okay, because I have,
Page numbers change.
because I have a signature page.
I think we should circle back to that just to see if it's, because we reference different spots. The driveway, clear on, but the roadway we're
Driveway
not.
grade shall
If
not
we're- if
exceed
we-
8%.
So I think it's gonna
Well,
take some.
what is an access road? Is that defined anywheres?
It should be
Is
in
it, is an
here.
access road a driveway, or is it a private road?
I don't see the road access is defined in this. In this,
Considered a lot of things in log.
I think we ought to just take out access road.
But then if you have a major subdivision come in and they're having to put an internal road,
Then they gotta go by the regulations for putting in a private road.
well, that would be site plan if you're doing that, right?
no.
Dead
If for
ends,
business?
road, or streets.
No, I'm saying it's residential.
Access road
I'm saying if it's residential,
defined within it.
you have a, 10-lot subdivision that comes in that is gonna be putting in a road. And that's what I was trying to see, if we cover the slope and the road design standards.
Would it just,
Also the definition of local access road within a
Finally.
Access road, I guess, could be for commercial.
It is defined.
Well, under definitions in Article 21, we have the authority to settle disputes on undefined terms. Those are defined. Sort of.
oh, so we do have access, like you said, local access road within this, it's just local is in front of it and not.
Where's that in the subdivision?
It's in the, no, yes, subdivision
What page?
definitions, my page 88, which would be their page 87.
And then there's also page 58, local access road or street, defined as well, and then their classification and sign.
It says intended to carry through traffic, which may not always be the case with subdivision.
Access of businesses.
So that could be
I
like,
think it
say,
may pertain
pertain
more
the
to
roads that live
businesses.
between the buildings and out
You
to
could have an
the,
access.
Sure.
they're not driveways per se.
So we're stuck on the definition of access road?
Seems that way.
Do we have to be?
So, yeah, we wouldn't want an egregious.
Everybody comfortable that an access road accesses a site? Move on. It's a road. It's either a subdivision, it could be a commercial subdivision, could be industrial access
I think we
road.
can just get the word, get rid of the word access and just change it to road. Access the sticking point here. Because it would only pertain to a road if they're building it, if it's being built.
If we were intending to keep
Otherwise, it's driveway.
8% from here, from the subdivision, would we just strike that line and not have to worry about it?
But that's what I'm saying, I'm looking in our, trying to find, so our sub regs should talk about
what you're
driveways.
saying.
I'm trying to find in here where we talk about the roads.
In the subdivision?
What is our, do we have a town,
It's on page 60.
like, town road standard? Because if someone were, they have to adhere
talked about
at a
earlier.
minimum to our town, our own town road building standards.
This is in the site plan.
15-2.
So that's only,
Yeah, we-
but that's only commercial.
Why does it say commercial?
And that has no reference
Yeah,
to,
local access road. Streets
grade.
used primarily for access to abutting properties, designed and intended to carry through traffic. Local access roads or streets are primarily intended to carry an average daily traffic volume of 1,000 vehicles a day or less.
What are you looking for?
Yes.
The minimum page.
Are you looking for
I was just trying to see
the
if we had anything on roads.
8% or?
Really? Oh, that's driveway design though.
This is road
Yeah.
design standards.
Driveway design is 8%.
Road design standards is 1521.
Back here.
Road
So it's
classification
not,
and
it's
design.
not there. We don't have a standard for the town then on road design grade.
Or a grade. I don't see it listed there.
Road construction standards 15.6, subgrade, page 4. Is that enjoy what you're looking for?
No, we don't have, yeah, there isn't anything in there.
Road design standards, no.
Well, it doesn't talk about grade, it just says that if on 1521 says when curbing's required and or steeper grades, then the pavement width shall be increased by 2 feet. That's all it says on that. But it doesn't say the 8%.
Okay, it's not in the road, so let's move on, because we'll probably have another 15 minutes, and then I think we're gonna call a meeting, because
I haven't had
we're
dinner
spending,
yet, so.
me neither.
Me either.
But we want driveways, roads at 8%. Slopes exceeding 25% shall be the following shall apply, which are submitting a grading plan and a driveway, slope lengths. Got through that one. Primary accessory dwelling units. Setback 20 feet from all ridge lines or slope tops. Anyone have an issue with that one?
Just the structures that may create a severe impact on the slope. Who's defining severe impact? Seems kind of squishy.
What section are you in, Joe?
D,
6D.
It seems that are we suggesting that the building envelope has to be additional 20 feet from a slope then?
Top slope,
Top slope.
yeah, top slope or ridge line.
Those are areas that would have more, much higher, chance of causing
Yeah.
an issue of either,
I guess I would
landslide or whatever, cause, some
I
sort
would
of
suggest we
disposal.
strike severe impact and we just,
Just say any
Just
structures.
impact. I would just say impact.
Structures.
well, we could include runoff and sedimentation and erosion in that section that may cause, runoff and subsequent sedimentation or erosion and sedimentation
You can just,
in that order.
how about just removing that may create a severe impact upon the slope?
Yeah, why don't we just, or other structures shall be set back 20 feet from the ridge lines.
if it's in the 25%.
Yeah. Anything in the 25% shall be, have a 20-foot setback.
Okay.
So strike out from the
Severe.
word that may
To slope.
create a severe impact upon the slope. Those words come out.
So thinking about the 30,000 contiguous building area, are we saying that right now, the plans, that buildable area goes right up to the 25%? Are we saying that now there's a 20-foot, they have to have 20 feet from those 25% slope areas? Because technically, the buildable area won't be in the 25, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
The buildable area it can't include the 25% grade.
So that line would say, now there's a 25,
There's a 20-foot,
Yeah, but these are for some of the other things, like detention basins, septic systems, that could be outside that.
Building.
it says all primary and accessory buildings. Okay, so it would actually be the footprint, not the buildable area, it's the footprint of the,
Right.
okay.
Right, so the contiguous area, the 30,000 square feet, they're still getting to calculate based on all the area that's outside the 15 or 25% slope. But we're just saying that if there's an area of 25% or greater, that they have to stay 20 feet away from it.
How do we enforce that? So we're not gonna know we're gonna have, they may have multiple areas where someone might decide to put the building. So would that be followed up on
By the building.
by building inspector? Okay. So in the case a plan comes up, we'd have to make sure we speak to that
Yeah, and the applicant would determine some of that, like the septic in the 4K area, we'd see that, you know, because they've already done test pits. They're
Right.
likely to have an idea where they might want to put it, I would think. I don't know how often they do that and then they move it somewhere else, but
Okay.
it could happen.
For E, we've got to take out the standards of the lot disturbance regulation as well. So that second sentence.
Right.
So that whole sentence has to go.
Right.
F, excuse me, F. Gray earth marking.
F speaks to exceeding the 15%, but it doesn't specify the 25%, which is where it's listed under.
No, it's not listed under the 25%. The only thing 25% is the.
Is C 1 and 2?
Is C
1 and 2.
Okay.
Not to get nitpicky, but it's almost, C is almost a sub-bullet of B, just for reading and clarification. Because it's specifically referring to driveways.
No, it's not. It's, the way I read it, it's grading or earth moving on.
They went back.
Oh, sorry, I'm going back up. Oh, yeah, sorry. Brought us backwards.
We can get to that after.
I'll make a note of it.
Are we fine with B?
Yes.
Okay. Can we go to F?
Yes.
Already did.
I think that makes sense.
I think that's fine.
And the same thing with the slopes for G.
Yep. Okay, Joanna, so you'll create a revised section of this based on our 2 hours of discussion?
Yes. Strikeouts and new language, or do you want it just new language?
I think strikeouts. Oh,
I'm with you. I think just the new language, just to see how it reads.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
we need to pull a hands again? Which would you prefer, strikeouts?
I think most of the
New
strikeouts.
language. 'cause
Can you
we
just
have
do
our-
track
we
changes
have
and
our
then they can
scribbles
push the
here.
button that says,
It's Word.
yeah, it's Word.
So for what you're sending electronically, you could send it with the strikeouts, but what you print, you can do without it. That makes sense.
So you want tracking changes sent to you, but when I print it, no tracking?
Yeah, because we can all, that way we can just click it off and on.
Okay.
Yep.
I have a question. Do you think Stratford Regional Planning could provide information on natural cover and slope percentages for us and what the real science is, depending on soils? And
Sure they could.
could you ask Kyle if they have information on steep slopes and erosions and where the percentages actually came from?
I think what we're doing here is kind of good because it's a balance. It's not taking it away fully, but it's starting to impose some regulations over the areas that are starting to, you know, be a more sensitive area. And then it increases, you know, as the area gets over 25%, it's a, you know, we increase the requirements on it even further.
Okay, so the other piece that was on our agenda was the list of projects, which is in the packet, and we just covered one. So,
Declare.
That's
a
good.
victory.
yeah, one is a draft.
So we'll have that draft, or we'll have this in time for the, our joint meeting with the ZBA. So I think it would be a good time to just kind of
Yep.
get their input too. at that point.
Okay. So what would we like to tackle next that's on this list? So we've done,
There's a replacement.
I'd like to, I think it was one of the key things was looking at the zoning on Route 4. And also the private ownership, road ownership, those are kind of two key pieces.
Yes.
Could we make it private road ownership slash maintenance of private roads?
Well, I think,
Yes,
but I think that comes to, because the maintenance part isn't us so much, but
Right.
I really think that that's the topic that's best addressed by multiple areas, selectmen, planning board, maybe town admin, just because we need to make sure that, you know, obviously, things that are being done affect our decisions, by precedence and everything else, so I think we have to be careful.
yeah, we're not gonna, I don't think we're gonna look at this as a closed loop.
Oh, no, but I mean, I think we're at the point now where any of the boards are getting kind of like guidance from either our legal counsel or like SRPC or somebody that's dealt with, you know, seeing developments on private roads and, because it's a whole different RSA, it's all different ramifications on it.
But we need to know,
Make sure that
we
we're-
need to look at our
know,
regulations.
We have like a checklist of what we need to do.
Yeah, that's what I think we need to go through our, because we do reference private roads in our subdivision regulations and zoning. So we need to, that's how it affects us in this board.
Right.
We're not gonna be able to answer all the legal questions.
Right. But there's a whole different RSA pertaining to it, so that's why I just wanna make sure that, you know, we understand like what, if there's additional requirements we have to ask for, or we should ask for. You know, there was like language from NHMA that said that you should put this language onto the plan, the final approved plan if it's approved. So it almost seems like, so I make sure we don't miss anything, because it is a little bit different than a regular subdivision or anything else.
So, I'm just not clear to the point. Is it to talk more about that or not talk about it?
Let's just make sure we understand what our purview is of it, and,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So we'll have to define what planning board's role is in this.
yes. Thank you.
So, as far as caseload schedule, we have, the next meeting is, when do we wanna talk about Route 4 rezoning? Meeting with the ZBA on the 9th? May 9th, is that the one?
I had, Russ Buchholz for the night.
Yeah.
Did that not happen?
No, May 9th is the Cole subdivision continuation.
Cool.
Yeah, and May 23rd is the meeting with, Russ, the ZBA, and
Okay.
we also have the Evans continuation. So are we gonna meet, April 25th?
We don't have any current cases
In the NHMA, or OIS conference is the 28th, so we won't have any of that information back from people that attend.
So that's, just 2 days before we go to the Hard Roads Conference. Might be worth doing a transportation subcommittee meeting that day, and then we could talk through some of the questions you guys might want us to bring.
Yeah. That
Okay.
would be a good thought, yeah.
I won't be here,
Okay.
just so you know.
You could email questions if you have any that you want us to bring.
Okay.
But you went to one, right, last year?
Hard Road, yeah, I did.
Okay,
Would that be 6:30?
sure.
Is that convenient?
So is that the 25th?
25th.
Yes,
All right.
yeah.
I'll probably have Charlene come in my place, because I'll be traveling that week.
Are we having a meeting or just a committee?
It's just a subcommittee, transportation subcommittee.
So at the meeting with the ZBA and Russ, that might be a good time to talk about the master plan subcommittee, because probably there's people from both. If we start a subcommittee.
Try and solicit, that's a good
time to
idea.
Start that one.
Solicit interest for being on the master plan committee.
Yes.
Okay, good idea. Can you add that to that agenda? Or at least prompt us?
I'm sorry, one more time.
So for the 23rd, May 23rd,
May 23rd.
as one of the agenda items, just to establish the subcommittee for the master plan.
Okay.
Okay. We have 5 minutes.
Do we want to approve minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes of March 28th, 2018 as amended.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
One abstention. I wasn't there.
You can still vote if you're not there.
I know that.
Do I need to go through my definition of?
No,
You submitted edits.
I'm just more comfortable doing it.
I know, that's the whole
Yeah,
thing.
right, you submitted
Submitted
edits.
edits.
They weren't content, they were,
Grammatical, I know.
All right, so we got through minutes. I'll just go around the table if anyone has anything to bring up.
I'm all set.
Teresa?
No.
Any more selectmen?
Nothing major. No, we didn't really cover anything at the meeting the other night that was germane to the planning board. Kind of administrative, legislative, and tax collection discussion.
Ed?
I
Neither.
have two quick things. I did a draft for Planning Board News that I sent out late this afternoon. If you have a chance to look at them, they're really due today, but I'm sure I can put them in tomorrow. I've already got an edit from Joanna. And in the news, I mentioned that we're starting to address updating the master plan. I went through and I listed all of these little things. Results of the election that we had, same old faces. And just wrapped it up with, we've been busy with subdivision plans and conceptuals. The second thing is, Sam Demir and I went to a workshop yesterday over at the Great Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve in Greenland. It was Municipal Board Empowerment Series Workshop number 6, and the discussion was about buffers and New Hampshire takings. And a taking is when, if you don't know, when you put a restriction on a property, like a setback or a buffer or whatever. And the presenter said you need to have a strong master plan that all of your regs are based on. So the fact that we're going to be updating our master plan is a good thing. But he also said you don't want to restrict property owners to the point where they can enjoy their own property either. So that was a good message. But I went there pretty much because the commission is interested in moving forward with additional protections or just some protections for third order streams and possibly other types of wetlands that we don't have restrictions for. So it was a good program. Okay, done.
Nothing from Stafford to bring this week.
Joe? Good here? Okay, great.
Motion to adjourn.
What is this?
Second.
I don't know.
Okay.
What is it?
It was here, so I didn't know if it was, did everybody get this?
There's a motion and a second.
Yes.
Yeah, you're asking what that is? Yes. One of the items on our list is dark sky, so I printed out a few of the things that we had from that.
Yep.
The brief discussion that we've had over time for you to look at if you want to bring it up further in the future. But I only printed it in copies.
Great.
That's for those today. Okay, a motion to adjourn by me?
By Joe.
Aye.
Okay,
We're
Sue
adjourned.
second.
thank you.
Aye, aye,
Unanimous.
aye.
Unanimous.